You've gone too far this time, my mother declared, her voice brittle as she surveyed me from across the living room. The words hung in the air, thick with a judgment I'd known my entire life, but this felt different. Sharper. More definitive. It was a pronouncement, delivered with the finality of a gavel strike. I looked down at myself, at the simple dress that now draped loosely over my frame, a stark contrast to the fabric I'd struggled to squeeze into just months ago. My reflection in the polished mahogany coffee table offered no solace, only a ghost of the person I used to be, and a stark, unsettling image of the one I had become. Life before this moment had been a constant negotiation of my own existence within the gilded cage my parents had meticulously constructed. It wasn't an overtly abusive home, not in the way the internet liked to scream about. It was subtler, 1,000 tiny cuts disguised as concern. My parents, Arthur and Eleanor, were pillars of their community, radiating an aura of effortless success and impeccable taste. Their world revolved around appearances, and any deviation was met with a quiet, suffocating disapproval. My weight had always been a particular sore spot. I wasn't obese, not by any medical definition, but I was generously proportioned, a term my mother wielded like a finely honed weapon. It was a constant undercurrent, a whispered commentary that followed me from childhood. "Are you sure you want another piece, dear? That dress makes you look a bit stuffed. Perhaps a gentle walk after dinner?" These weren't suggestions, they were directives cloaked in politeness. The wedding for my cousin, Sarah, had been the catalyst. Sarah, their golden child, their perfect progeny, was getting married. And naturally, my parents saw it as an opportunity. "Darling," my father had begun, his voice smooth as aged bourbon, "you'll want to look your absolute best for Sarah's special day. It reflects on us, you know. We've booked a nutritionist. And a personal trainer. It's all arranged. Just a little boost to get you wedding ready. Think of it as an investment." An investment in their reputation, I'd understood. The nutritionist was kindly but firm, her pronouncements delivered with an unnerving cheerfulness that belied the restrictive meal plans. The trainer, a young man named Liam, was more sympathetic, but his job was to push, and push he did. I found myself at the gym at dawn, my muscles screaming, my mind a fog of exhaustion and forced smiles. There was the time, a few years prior, when I'd expressed an interest in a photography course. My father had looked at me, a faint frown creasing his brow. "Photography? Is that really going to be useful, dear? Perhaps something more practical. Like accounting. Your mother has a cousin who's doing very well in corporate finance." My dreams were brushed aside like dust motes, deemed frivolous and impractical. Or the time my mother had accidentally forwarded me an email chain discussing my future prospects with a prospective suitor, detailing his financial standing and family pedigree, but making no mention of his personality or my feelings. They didn't nurture, they curated. And I, their creation, was always being subtly reshaped to fit their perfect picture. The wedding weekend was a blur of forced smiles, polite conversations, and my parents' watchful eyes. Every meal was an interrogation, every compliment laced with an unspoken caveat. "You look so svelte, darling," my aunt had gushed, her gaze lingering a moment too long. It wasn't a compliment, it was an observation of my transformation, a testament to my parents' influence. I'd lost a significant amount of weight, shedding pounds that had felt like a burden, a physical manifestation of their constant disapproval. I'd felt lighter, yes, but also hollowed out. The final straw, the moment that fractured everything, happened the morning after the wedding. The house was quiet, the guests dispersed, leaving behind a faint scent of expensive perfume and champagne. My parents were in the sunroom, sipping coffee, their faces etched with a peculiar blend of satisfaction and something akin to annoyance. I walked in, still in my robe, a tentative smile on my face, expecting perhaps a quiet "well done" or a simple acknowledgement of the effort. Instead, my mother turned, her eyes narrowing as she took me in. "Honestly, darling," she sighed, her voice dripping with saccharine disappointment. "You really have gone too far this time." My father nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. "Eleanor's right. It's a bit much. You've completely lost your shape. It's not healthy, you know." You look frail. The words hit me like a physical blow. All the early mornings, the grueling workouts, the restrictive diets, the constant hunger, all of it, dismissed. My success, the very thing they had demanded, was now deemed excessive, a transgression. I looked at them, at their perfectly coiffed hair and their immaculate attire, and I saw not parents, but architects of my insecurity, designers of my self-doubt. The silence in the sunroom stretched, punctuated only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach, a chilling clarity washing over me. They didn't want me to be healthy, they wanted me to be a malleable reflection of their own image. And I had dared to deviate, to become something beyond their control. That afternoon, I sat at my desk in my childhood bedroom, the same desk where I'd once doodled dreams that were now buried under layers of parental expectation. I didn't cry. The tears had dried up weeks ago, replaced by a quiet, simmering resolve. I opened my laptop, my fingers moving with a deliberate, almost surgical precision. I accessed the legal documents I'd meticulously gathered over the past few months, documents that outlined the trusts and investments my parents had established for me. They had always spoken of them as gifts, as assurances of my future. They hadn't realized they were also building the scaffolding for my eventual emancipation. I scrolled through the intricate clauses, the carefully worded stipulations. My father, Arthur, had always been meticulous in his financial dealings, ensuring his legacy was protected, his control absolute. He'd overlooked a crucial detail, the provision for an independent financial advisor to review all trust distributions annually, an advisor chosen by me, not by him. It was a safety net, designed, I suspected, to ensure transparency, not to facilitate escape. With steady hands, I drafted an email to Mr. Henderson, the esteemed and notoriously impartial advisor they had reluctantly agreed to as a concession to my growing independence. I outlined my concerns, attached the relevant trust deeds, and requested an immediate, comprehensive review of all assets and their management. I attached the nutritionist's final report, which, while detailing my weight loss, also noted a period of significant emotional distress attributed to external pressures. I also included a discreetly obtained record of my father's recent aggressive trading activities, which, while not illegal, bordered on reckless and had put a significant portion of the family's liquid assets at considerable risk. I didn't send it immediately. I waited until the following morning, when I knew Arthur would be poring over his market reports. I clicked send. Then, with the same calm, I opened the shared family calendar, the one my mother religiously updated with every social engagement and appointment. I deleted every upcoming event that involved either of them. Not just the big ones, but the small, routine ones too. Lunches, dinners, charity events. I removed myself entirely from their curated social tapestry. My father's reaction was swift, almost immediate. A furious call, his voice a tight wire of disbelief and rage. What is the meaning of this? Henderson called me. He said you've requested a full audit. Are you insane? Just following procedure, father, I replied, my voice unnervingly calm. Ensuring everything is in order. In order? You're disrupting everything. Eleanor is beside herself. Then perhaps she should have considered the consequences before deciding my health was a family embarrassment. He spluttered, but I continued, my tone devoid of emotion. And I've also removed myself from the family calendar. I'll be in touch when I'm available to socialize. The silence on his end was deafening. Then, a click. My mother's response was a barrage of frantic text messages, a desperate attempt to rally her usual allies. You won't believe what has done. Completely out of control. Arthur is furious. We need you all to talk to her. She's destroying the family. Her flying monkeys, as I'd come to think of them, began to circle. My aunt, my father's sister, called, her voice saccharine sweet, laced with veiled accusations. Darling, your mother is so worried. Are you sure you're eating enough? Arthur says you're being rather difficult. I responded to each with polite, measured brevity. I'm fine, Aunt Carol. Just making some necessary adjustments. My diet is a personal matter. I'm not being difficult, I'm being practical. The more I deflected, the more agitated they became. Their carefully constructed narrative was unraveling, and they couldn't fathom why. Mr. Henderson, true to his reputation, was thorough. Within a week, he presented Arthur with a report that detailed not only the precariousness of his recent investments but also a pattern of what he termed unconventional financial stewardship when it came to family trusts. He recommended a complete restructuring, effectively stripping Arthur of his direct control over my inheritance and placing it under the purview of a newly appointed, neutral trustee. Arthur, who had built his empire on control, was suddenly without it. The social fallout was also significant. Whispers in the IR exclusive circles began to circulate about Arthur's financial imprudence and Eleanor's difficult daughter. Their carefully curated image began to tarnish. The wedding, once a triumphant display of their influence, now felt like a Pyrrhic victory. The aftermath was quiet, almost anticlimactic. There were no dramatic confrontations, no shouting matches. Just a slow, steady erosion of their power. Arthur retreated, his usual bluster replaced by a sullen silence. Eleanor, deprived of her social outlets and her primary tool of manipulation, became withdrawn, her sharp edges dulled by a newfound helplessness. They had forced me to change, to become the person they demanded. And in doing so, they had inadvertently given me the strength, and the tools, to break free. I hadn't sought revenge, I had simply executed a carefully planned withdrawal. The satisfaction wasn't in their pain, but in the quiet, undeniable truth that their grip had finally, irrevocably, loosened. I had finally taken control of my own narrative, not with anger, but with precision. The silence that followed was not one of defeat, but of a hard-won, chilling peace.